Ryan Bates is starting at right guard. It's officially down to 2 at that middle linebacker spot, and officially a three-way competition at corner opposite of Trey White. Welcome to my channel here, Bills News Consolidated. I have 10 things from this roster drop, this depth chart that was just released for the first preseason game against the Indianapolis Colts. And I already mentioned a few of them, right? But we're going to get into 10 solid things that are going to be very, very interesting to watch going forward for the Buffalo Bills. Now, going to this three-way tie at the opposite corner position, right? They have Dane Jackson, Kaiir Elam, and Christian Benford still fighting for that opposite role of Trey White. Now, I do believe whoever loses out on that role will be backing up Trey White. So, the person backing up Trey White right now may not necessarily make the roster, but they are fighting to compete on that opposite cornerback spot. And officially down to 2 at that middle linebacker spot between Terrell Bernard and Tyrel Dotson. Who's going to rise to the top? We have some serious pictures and things that we're going to be going over here at this channel during camp between Tyrel Dotson and Terrell Bernard. I really believe it's going to be whoever makes the biggest impact, whoever makes the biggest splash plays, batted balls, forced fumbles, interceptions, sacks, just a multitude of ways. Now, roster is down to multiple tight ends, but I really believe Buffalo Bills have a two-way competition here and a decision that needs to be made on Boogie Basham versus Shaq Lawson. Now, I think the Bills are really looking at both of them as a similar skill set. Both power edge rushers that could hold down the perimeter. And we've been kind of waiting for Boogie Basham to take that next step. Shaq Lawson getting so much praise from Leslie Frazier in years past. So I really think it's boiling down between Shaq Lawson and also Boogie Basham. And the reason for that is because of Leonard Floyd basically leapfrogging these other defensive ends. Leonard Floyd leapfrogged. We don't really know AJ Epinesa at this point, but he definitely leapfrogged Shaq Lawson and Boogie Basham. So he's definitely doing better than them. And then when you take a look at our other free agent signing, Shane Ray is actually behind Boogie Basham and Shaq Lawson on the depth chart right now. Some other things on this defensive line, they are still extremely high on Jordan Phillips. Jordan Phillips basically really still ahead of Poona Ford on the depth chart. We've been hearing so many great things about Poona Ford, seeing how well he did in that goal line situation, saying that he's an immovable object. Well, Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills still believe that Jordan Phillips is better than Poona Ford. But we got to see how training camp, and you know how the rotation works. I mean, there's not really a necessary starter on this defensive line. But moving back to offense, we got Khalil Shakir and Deontay Hardy working down and holding down the slot position only. We don't see Khalil Shakir on the outside working in a rotation, right? Competing with maybe a Trent Sherfield who's out there. But another thing that we have to keep in mind here is Justin Shorter. He's listed as the 6th wide receiver on this team and competing on special teams as well. Hearing that he's been balling out of control. So many people saying like he's a freak of nature. They've never seen anything like it. So I really am liking what he presents offensively for those 6'4" jump ball situations and also on special teams. So I think that's huge. And some other big news here that came out is the kick and punt return. We basically have Andy Isabella on punt and kick return for the Buffalo Bills. Now, I know Deontay Hardy is going to be the starter. Khalil Shakir is the backup. But Andy Isabella, 4.31, the third-string punt and kick returner for the Buffalo Bills, and a player that we brought in that we thought that would maybe contribute to punt and kick return was Darrington Evans, running back, and he's actually not even listed as a punt and kick returner for Bills Mafia. So I think it's super interesting to see how this is all shaken out. Quentin Morris, competing with the other tight ends on this team, trying to solidify that third tight end role. Really, Quentin Morris was our second string tight end to Dawson Knox last year. So it's like, what's going to happen with Quentin Morris now with Dalton Kincaid being here? Dalton Kincaid backing up Dawson Knox. But I think Quentin Morris at that number 3 spot, he's still there. He's still solidifying himself. And if the Bills want to run more 2 tight end sets, I really think having a 3rd string tight end being there for insurance throughout the season makes a lot of sense. And Quentin Morris definitely seems like he's going to be that guy for Bills Mafia. But again, I really think Jamarcus, I'm trying to think of his name, who's backing up Trey White right now on the depth chart. But I really think whoever is there right now is probably going to get replaced by Kyer Elam, Christian Benford, or Dane Jackson, whoever loses out on that competition. And keep in mind, Dane Jackson played in Trey White's spot last year when Trey White was out for majority of the season. And then the middle linebacker spot is really, really key to keep our eyes on here. I mean, Terrell Bernard versus Tyrel Dotson. We saw some highlights there with Tyrel Dotson covering Dalton Kincaid. Basically had Dalton Kincaid completely wrapped up, and you just see Dalton Kincaid reach out his arm, make a one-hand grab. He was completely covered, but his catch radius just balling out of freaking control. But it's super interesting to see how this is going to work. Now, I know we have Ryan Bates starting at right guard, basically starting ahead of Osiris Torrance. I mean, that's some big-time news. So, what is going to happen here? Is that ultimately how it's going to work out for 2023? By the time we get through these preseason games, I really think Osiris Torrance, rookie, could potentially hop over, leapfrog Ryan Bates. At this point, Sean McDermott, they're not comfortable enough starting Osiris Torrance in his first preseason game going against the first string team. I think we're going to try to ease Osiris Torrance in there. Just like Dalton Kincaid, we're going to ease him in there. Nick Broker, another draft pick that not a lot of people are talking about, seems to definitely have found himself at guard. Now, he was said to be able to play tackle, play center, right, play all these positions. But I think he's definitely going to be mixing in there at guard. Maybe we'll see some snaps at center. Tommy Doyle is still fighting for a roster spot here after getting hurt last year. Spencer Brown is still the starter ahead of Brandon Shell. Will that still be the case by the time preseason is over with? There are still a lot of questions. And I already mentioned Shaq Lawson versus Boogie Basham and Shane Ray, really. All those guys. It's going to be really interesting. And Poona Ford, Tim Settle, how's that going to shake out? Is Jordan Phillips going to come back 100% healthy here for the season? It's going to be really, really interesting. And then you really have A.J. Klein sitting on the outside looking in, but the veteran savviness, being a leader. Will he only be around for the preseason and training camp to help our guys now that we have Baylon Spector actually ahead of him on the depth chart? So we just have to really see how this all shakes out. I'm really thinking the Bills are just kind of preparing these kids for the NFL. And they want to see how they stack up to get their evaluations on them. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit like, subscribe for future content. Appreciate you, and go Bills.